Hey everyone, welcome back to AWS Connections. My name is Nick Raboy, and to my side I have Michael Palermo. We're going to be bringing you the second episode of our Serverless series on the show. You want to tell us about what we're going to be up to, Michael?
Sure. The sneak peek here, it's going to follow a similar routine to what we did in our last episode. And for those who weren't on that last episode, the short story is we're going to see various ways that you can access our Geocode API. One will be through our JavaScript SDK, another through our RESTful API, and finally, how does this look when we access it through the AWS Serverless Application Repository? So in a nutshell, that's what we're going to be doing today.
Awesome. So before we jump into that core material of today's episode, I want to go over some logistic stuff. So first of all, we are live. So go ahead and say hi in the chat. Ask us questions. I'll be moderating the chat. We have a few other moderators as well who'll be from here inside the chat. Definitely participate. In terms of our channel, make sure you follow us. If you follow the Twitch channel, you'll get notifications every time we have a new episode coming out. Or become a subscriber. By becoming a subscriber, you can donate to us in bits that we plan to donate to a charitable relief fund. Why don't we jump right into the core material, Michael? Where do we want to start?
Fantastic. Well, you know, first of all, I have to give you some kudos here, Nick. I've really been enjoying moderating some of the Waypoint episodes that you've had. And I've enjoyed the banter that you've had with the other people, such as Dylan, who I think is dying to do another episode, by the way. So
probably
we'll bring him back. Another thing that I really enjoyed watching in your previous episodes, which I'd like to see in this one, would be this collaboration of code in Visual Studio Code. So I was thinking I'd put you up to a challenge since we can share our code. Let's go ahead and view the code screen right now. Prepared for you is a simple HTML, shell of a doc. It would be so fun and actually kind of take the pressure off of me a little bit to watch the famous Nick Raboy
I don't know about that.
Create using our new JavaScript SDK a sample of just a simple way to access our Geocode API. So, Nick, aren't you excited to do this?
Where are we going with this, Michael?
Just have fun. Start coding away.
Start coding away?
Yeah, explain what you're doing. So you know, this screen is just for the JavaScript API, what are you going to do?
Yeah, so what I can do, and it'll lead us into the core AWS material, is familiarize ourselves with the geocoder. We've talked about it a few times on Twitch through Waypoints and other shows. But you know what? Our JavaScript SDK recently got updated, so it's worthwhile to see it again real quick, right? Right, Michael?
I agree. That's why we're doing this. I think it's a good call.
Yeah, so we are using Visual Studio Code using Live Share. This is something we've been playing around with. So both me and Michael will be able to edit the same document. But the first step inside of this page is we want to add our SDK modules. And it's similar to what we've been doing in the other versions, and they're very easily found inside of the developer portal documentation. But as you can see, I pasted them in. Notice that this time around we are using 3.1. I've highlighted it versus 3.0, which we had been using previously. But after we add those modules in, the service one being important to us for the geocoding service, we can actually add a script tag where we can actually make use of the geocoder. Well, let's see if I can drop this down. There we go. We won't be adding a visual component to it. We'll be using, well, we will, but more importantly, it's not going to be a map. We're not going to be working with a map in this example.
And let me explain why real quick. Yeah. I don't want this one to be confused. In other words, oftentimes we do use the geocoder in relation to a map. We want the focus just to be the core access to geocode, however it's used, and it doesn't always have to be in relationship to a visual map. So we just want to stay true to that purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. So inside the script, we can initialize our platform, which is similar to what we've done before. So I can say something like constant platform equals new h.platform. This time around, though, instead of defining an app code and app ID, we're using a new JavaScript token. So this is one of the big changes, and it might actually be the only change between this version of the example and the previous. But now we're actually using an API key. I don't know if Michael wants to share his screen and show what that looks like inside the developer portal, and we'll just have his pasted in.
Sure. So right here, when I go to my project, which I called Evangelism Demos, I'll notice that right here is that API key that you're talking about. That's versus what we used to have, which was the app ID and app code in 3.0. It's now just this one key. So I'll copy that, and I'll bring it back over to code and put that right there where Nick asked me to do so.
Awesome. So we won't be initializing a map. But we will need to initialize the geocoder. We can say something like constant geocoding service equals platform.get geocoding service. So the geocoder would be initialized at this point. We can actually then choose to begin using it if we want to, and this is before we even add any kind of visual component to it. We can say something like geocoding service, I cannot spell today, dot geocode. We can provide options. Let me bring this down so it's a little easier to read. The options being, well, for example, what's our search query going to look like, so on and so forth. So we can have search text. Mm-hmm. What do we want to search for, Michael?
Let's see. How about Palermo?
Palermo? I don't think we're gonna get a place that's like that.
I think you will.
But let's go. Oh, you think so?
I do.
What's it gonna be? Your house?
No.
No?
Don't you know what my last name is?
No, I have no idea. I thought
you'll find out.
Thought it was something you made up. All right. Inside the geocode, though, we have some callbacks. So we can have a success callback, which might return some kind of data. We also have an error,
which you almost misspelled, which would have been an error.
Yeah, but luckily I have you here to correct me, right?
Yeah.
We'll just console.error this if there is an error. Otherwise, for the time being, what we can do is we can say console.log data. We're just going to print it out for now. So if I save this and you open it up in your web browser, Michael, let's see what happens.
Let's do that.
See if there's a ton of errors in here.
So it's the page. Let's refresh, and I will make sure we have this. We do have an issue with the platform.
All right. Off the top of your head, do you see any kind of issues that I might have had?
Let me take a look here. It's saying platform.
I think it's
not a constructor.
I think that's what we want. h.service.platform.
Ah, okay.
That looks
you want to save that
more
and
familiar,
try it?
Right? Yeah, I saved it.
Okay. Good call on making sure we're error-free.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and look at that response object that it sent back.
Yeah.
Maybe explore that a bit.
Sure.
So
well, go ahead.
Yeah, inside the view, it looks like, well, actually inside the view, I think we have a results object, right?
Yes. So it's right here, and under the results, we have our array to come back a city, and then we expand that out. Yeah, and I think what was it? Roberto Dev was mentioning somewhere in the chat what the where am I? Oh yeah, I need to expand in here. There you go. He already called it for South Italy, so good job for Roberto.
I learned something new too because I didn't know that was a place.
It is the capital of Sicily.
Very nice.
All right. So yes, anything else you wanted to highlight there?
I mean, you can go back into it. Let's check it out real quick.
Sure.
I mean, you get information like the ad. So I mean, as vague as my search query was, It found results and it filled in the blank. It also found the latitude and longitude if we ever wanted to use it for markers or
Right.
anything else. Maybe we wanted to upload it to here, X, Y, Z.
Right.
That doesn't matter. Whatever you can imagine.
Yeah.
It also has a match quality to it.
Yes.
So a match quality of 1 means that it was an exact match. This information is useful when it comes to validating addresses. So there's a lot of useful information that comes back in the results, right?
Absolutely.
Right, Michael?
I agree.
So maybe we make an adjustment real quick,
Sure.
and maybe add a search box so that we can enter our own search queries in. Let me go back into my editor.
This is very exciting.
Yeah, we could add an element. Let's go ahead and say maybe this is input type equals text. We can say that ID is maybe I don't know, query, and maybe leave it at that. And then we maybe also have a button, and this could be of type button, and maybe we have an on-click listener, right, for JavaScript, and we say search maybe.
Okay.
And I don't know if I need the parentheses. I might
put the parentheses
with the parentheses. All right. It's been a while since I've done vanilla JavaScript. I'm usually always using a framework.
Gotcha.
Let's go ahead and say search. Oh,
that'd be in there. Yeah.
Here.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. When you clicked on it, it did something with my autocomplete.
I messed with the with the collab settings.
It's all
continue.
Good. It's all good. So for the search text, we could probably change this up. We could probably say document.get element by ID. We're going to say that this is query, and we could probably get the value from it. We also probably want to change it up to make this only triggered based on function. So we can say maybe we could say constant search equals function, something like that, right? And maybe paste that in. And maybe let's try this. It might work. It might not. I saved it.
Find out.
Yep.
So you give me a place to search now.
Let's go with Las Vegas.
Hit search. And we get a response, of course. So
we don't see the top of your screen. So maybe we can. It's getting cut. Wait, never mind. I think it is. I think my screen is just cutting it off. I see it.
You see it. Okay, good.
Yeah, I lied.
You're scaring me, man.
No. It's all good. Okay. Did we get any results back?
We did. Yes. So I've got it right here on the screen.
I'm looking.
I'll scroll.
Yeah. So it found
bring
it.
This up. Okay.
So it did what we expected. We just added a UI element to it so that way we could define in a non-hard-coded fashion some geocoded results.
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight, you see this display position, and when I hover over it, it'll say like response.view. It'll show basically kind of like the path to that display position, because a lot of times that's what we're looking for is the latitude and the longitude.
Yeah, that's usually all I'm looking for when I do that.
Right.
All right. I mean,
very cool.
Do we want to explore anything else, or did you want to take it to the next step here? Or
I think we take it to the next step.
And what is the next step?
That was awesome, by the way. And everyone watching, this is Nick just flying solo with the whole, hey, I'll show you how to do this JavaScript SDK thing with Geocoder. So that was awesome. So the next thing would be essentially saying, so what would that look like if we were to just use the Geocode RESTful API versus using the JavaScript SDK? So for that, Nick, we're still going to be using search text, but now it's going to be in the context of just the RESTful API. So I'm going to switch us back over to the code window, and there he's already there. He's ready to rock. He's going to show us how this looks in a RESTful setting.
Yeah, so it's going to be similar to an extent. Of course, we won't be including any here modules to it. But we will have our tokens. Sorry, it auto completed on me here. It's odd that it doesn't let me hit enter. We're gonna do a few things first as kind of setup. So first of all, let's go ahead and define our tokens. So because we're using REST, we need to use our app ID and app code still, rather than the JavaScript token. So we're gonna say app ID equals. I'll just leave it as an empty string. I'll say constant app code equals empty string, and I'll let Michael add his codes in.
Okay, so what would be the flaw if I wanted to copy and paste from our JavaScript geocode?
The flaw, if you accidentally use the JavaScript token, or if you used one of your mobile tokens.
Not only that, I don't even have two options to copy from. I only have one, just API key. So what would that mean I would need to do? I'd have to go over back to my project page, which is here.
Yep.
And instead of using the JavaScript SDK, I now use our REST and XYZ hub. So I'm going to copy the app ID first.
Yep.
And bring that back over into code. So app ID here. And then also, likewise, for our app code, copy that. Bring that back over to here. So now we have those two things that Nick requested. And again, got that from the projects area of my profile at developer.here.com.
Yeah, definitely. So we have those. The next step is, well, how do we make it an HTTP request in JavaScript? There are quite a few ways to do this. One way that I recently have started using, since Dylan Babs has told me about it, is fetch, since he's always given me a hard time. So I am going to use a fetch request.
Cool.
This is just a JavaScript HTTP request, but it's fetch, and this is built into modern versions of JavaScript. We're going to have the URL, which I'm actually going to get Michael to populate for us.
Do you want me to bring that in from our documentation?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'll bring it all. I'll bring this.
Put you on the spot.
Oh, no worries. I think I just accidentally.
Did you stumble upon it?
Here,
you already
let
had
me
it
just
up?
refresh this page. Sorry. There we go. And okay, so you can, of course, modify the stuff in there, but I'll stick it right here. And oh yeah, it had a ton of info in there. So if you want to eliminate all the search text stuff.
Yeah. So for search text, at least for now, let's go ahead and maybe set a variable here. Let's go ahead and say var. I'll call it query again for now. I'll let you fill it in while I change it up. You can put whatever search query you want there.
Do you want me to just take care of that? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, no. I've got this. You get line 8.
Line 8. Oh, gotcha. Okay. How about me hometown of Phoenix?
Go for it. For the app ID, we already have that, so it's app ID.
Right.
App code.
I think you eliminated the app code parameter.
I did.
There, yeah.
I don't know what this Gen 9 is. I've never seen that before. Have you?
I always look another direction.
What? What does that mean?
It means I've ignored it.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I have no idea what it is, but I've never used it in the past. So I'm going to say that for this example, we probably don't need it. But I'm sure there's reasons why you would want to include it.
Sure.
Just not for this example. So we have everything on our fetch. This is a promise. This uses JavaScript promises. So I want to have a then. The result that we're looking for is JSON. So what I can do is I can say response, response.json.
Yes.
And I can continue chaining that promise. I can say then. I can say response, and maybe even print it out. Or if we wanted to, if the promise was rejected, I can say console.log error. And I think this will run if you run it.
Okay. You already save it?
Yeah, I saved it.
All right, let's take a look here. We have our REST geocoder. I'm going to refresh this. And let me get the screen up, of course. So there's our object, of course. We have our response. And if I go in and view our array and look at our result there, we're going to see that there is a location match. And sure enough, that is my hometown.
Awesome. So knowing what we know now then, Michael, should we add the UI component to it, or should we call it a day? Because it will be the same as what we saw in the JavaScript version.
I believe the answer to this is only if it makes you feel complete as a developer, if you need that UI information in there. Otherwise, I think I'm good to go. You're good to go?
I'm good to go.
Okay, so the next stop here is going to be considering our AWS version of this. And what's really important, Nick, is the first one, everything was managed from the client HTML. In other words, from the JavaScript developer, when you're using our SDK, all of those scripts that are brought in, they manage all of the calls for us. So yes, there's a server-side call, but we're just really ultra dependent on that SDK. In the second version, what we've done with the RESTful call is you made the call directly over that RESTful API, but your client could have been something other than an HTML form. It could have been anything, of course, that can make a RESTful call. And so that's the advantage of the RESTful API, is you can use it just about anywhere. Where, of course, our JavaScript SDK is intended for web development. Now, what we want to do is see the difference to using the same approach. It's very similar to our RESTful approach, but not requiring a dependency on the client to even know what the app ID and the app code is. I mean, that's not the only advantage, but that's one of them. In other words, what we're introducing with this AWS serverless application repository is in fact creating our own custom API call for our own uses, whether it's across multiple client types, whatever the case might be, and then use that API to call our other, to call the API that we're calling right now, which is our Geocode API. So to get started with that, I am currently logged in to the AWS console, and you can see, of course, under my recently visited services, I have the serverless application repository. Now, if you didn't have that on your screen because you hadn't visited there, if you just started typing serverless application repository in this text box, then of course you would get to the same area. So I'm going to click here. And then what we see here is I can, of course, the repository is interesting. It's an area that I can publish my own applications to share with the world, or I can go see what the world has published that I can use. And what I'm wanting to do is not to look under my applications, but I want to look under available applications. And from here, I'm going to search for here Geo Code.
You're having a bad typing day like I am.
I know. It's just ridiculous. I noticed that you like to always type 3 R's for error. Just an FYI. I don't know why, but anyway,
I don't know why.
Back to our program. Back to our program. So I'm going to click on Geocode because that's the star right here. And when I do so, it's giving me the opportunity to, of course, get the brief description on this. This is our URL to GitHub to get some information on it. But as I scroll down, this is where I can now say, I would like to use this. I want this application deployed into my environment. And I'm going to call this Twitch Geocode. That'll be my name for it. Then it's going to ask me for my here app ID and code. Now, be careful because in this template, code comes first, then ID. In my project page, the ID comes first, then code. So make sure you copy.
I probably would have messed that up.
Oh, I've done it before, so it's possible. So I'm going to copy that. By the way, just for everyone else's sake, if you happen to scroll down a little too aggressively, and you start copying these app IDs and app codes, you might get an interesting error. Oh, I don't know. I'll just guess. Maybe a 401. Who knows? Anyway, back to our program. I'll copy this here, go back over into the Lambda or to our repository, which I think was right here. Yeah. And here's the code. Then the next thing I'm going to do is go back over to my project page, grab over the ID, bring that back over into here, and put it here. So here's what it does. The reason why it wants those values is when it makes the underlying call to our API, it needs those, but it's also going to automatically add them as server invariables so that you won't even see these in the code at all, which is a nice feature, right? So it won't even be exposed in the code. So with that stated, I will now deploy our Twitch geocode.
If it's not in the code at all, do you have the opportunity to change these at a later time?
You do, and I'll show you where to do that when we get to the Lambda that was auto-generated for us.
Sure.
So what this is doing now is it's creating all of the resources required for that geocode. Now, we're only focusing on the core geocode function today, but one of the other ones, as you might see appearing on the screen, is the geocode suggest feature. So by deploying this one application, we're actually getting two functions out of it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So it is almost done. I'm just going to scroll down here until all of these say that the create is complete. So I believe that
it looks like
is
it's creating a lot of services. Is this it's all right if you don't know it, because I don't know either. Is it what's it cost to roll something like this out, just like what you did here?
You know, like the cost, the footprint for this?
Yeah, does it have a footprint?
So it's better to put it this way. This is like negligible with regard to a cost.
Yeah.
Where the cost comes in, it's just how it gets used.
Sure.
So if I were to ignore the serverless application repository and just create all of this by scratch, the act of creating Lambda functions and stuff is not really where the cost is. The cost is how they get used.
Sure.
So all we've done here is created everything necessary to support these serverless functions. So the two functions that were involved, such as the auto suggest and the actual geocode core feature, it also does, as you can see by the nomenclature, it's also going through and creating all the necessary security permissions. And you'll even notice right here, I'll scroll back over, and if anyone was watching this from our last episode, it also creates through the API gateway our own custom API URL to invoke our own, call. So instead of the clients calling our here API directly, it's going to be calling our private or our own personal API. So all of this is what gets done for us, and it really simplifies the development for developers.
Makes sense.
All right, you ready to see what the code looked like?
Yeah, I'm dying to see the code. That's what I'm all about.
So I'm clicking on our geocode function. And the geocode function in our Lambda, when I scroll down, it looks like this. I'm just gonna scroll the code here, but you'll notice here where it says here app ID and here app code, and it's going to the process to grab those environment variables that I talked about.
Yeah.
And then your question was, hey, could I change them later, right?
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, the environment variables are available right there. So if you did need to swap out, you could do that. Now, Nick, this is probably going to be very interesting to you. Well, it could be. We'll see how you feel. This is where this demo is going to get really exciting.
Sure.
Do you notice down here something a little different than the last time we explored Lambdas with the serverless application repository? Hint, look at line 58.
You've made a comment there, but
I
honestly don't remember what we did in the last episode, so I don't know.
I know you are such a coder that you have your memory. You have a memory leak. That's what that's called.
Yeah, probably.
So let me explain what's happening. in our last episode, we really didn't even have to look at the code because in order to make sure we would avoid this nasty error about cores, we had to go into the API gateway and we needed to actually enable cores at the API gateway. Now, in this example, we're going to see a step that we did not see before. And what I wanted to do is actually show everyone what these errors look like and how to fix them. This episode will be a success if we actually accomplish fixing them. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm dying, dude. Hurry, let's do it.
So you see
just
that,
for a time check, though, we are at 11:30, but we've got time.
Yes. You see, this was not code I created. This was code that was automatically deployed when I said deploy this.
Sure.
What you'll notice is that in the code deployed is a comment for headers if the developer chooses to uncomment it. So again, if they choose to uncomment it, that's what this is here for.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to leave it commented out. I'm not going to uncomment this code. I'm going to go back over to our applications. So when I say applications, I want to see the one that we created, this Twitch Geocode. Yep. Click on it, and I want to see the resources that are associated with this. So there's the Geocode function, the Geocode suggest, but notice also I have access to our serverless REST API. Now, I kind of cheated a little bit, so I'm going to take this little physical ID that you see here. I'm gonna copy that, go back over into our Visual Studio Code, and unlike you, who is a master at just coding on the fly, I like to have my code just a little bit ready and prepared to go. Sure. So I did. And on line 27, to call this API, you'll notice that for me to call my custom API, it's really preceded by that kind of like unique moniker. So that little code is really going to get me to the thing that we just created.
Can we turn that into a fetch?
Could we run this first before we fetch? Because I love that you would want to turn it into a fetch, and I want that to happen. So all right, he's looking at this and he's like, this is Nick. I mean, this is the example of Nick right now. When he sees that code, he's like thinking of Michael. In my day, we used these fancy schmancy things called XML HTTP requests. Yeah, and he's calling my age out. So, okay, fine. But just for this case, I'm going to go ahead and save this. Going to go back over to our browser. For this page, I want to make sure I also have the developer console open here. And when I type in a place like, let's say, Phoenix, say get location, I am getting error name not resolved. Not necessarily.
I'm looking at your URL. It seems to be broken.
Oh, yeah. It still doesn't have that thing there. I thought I saved it. Hold on. Let me go back. I thought it was saved.
Maybe it wasn't. Saved? It looks like it's saved.
Yeah. Try. Oh, maybe I need to refresh the page.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you refreshed it when you entered it.
Let's try it now.
There you go.
Oh,
better.
No. What is the deal? Well, first of all, at least we got past a certain area, but now we're getting these kind of errors. So what to do? Here's what I want to try first. I want to go back over to the serverless REST API, or actually not there, here, and just see what would happen if just uncommenting headers would fix this problem.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
So backspace. This is now saying this is allowed. I'm going to save this. Go back over. So that's all I've done is a change on the server side.
Yep.
And I'm going to do a full refresh. Type in place Phoenix and hit get Leo or get the geolocation.
Looks
now
good.
Get response. Go back just like what we've been doing before, so we can see our arrays, and you'll see here that we do truly have everything working. Now, the reason why I'm showcasing this is for those that watched the previous episode, this was not the fix. The fix for the CORS error, do you recall what that was, Nick? Or is your memory leak still happening?
Yeah, not that bad.
Okay.
We did an adjustment inside of the API gateway, right?
That's correct. In fact, I'd like to show where that was.
Yeah, so and can you also explain why we don't have to do it this time around?
Yes. Let me first go to the API gateway to show where it was, and then I'll explain why it wasn't necessary.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to click on this Serverless REST API. Again, I got here because this application is showing me all the resources created to make it work. So when I click here, it's going to take me to that API gateway. One of the advantages of the API gateway is when you go into your, for example, in this, if I click on like our search text here, let's see, resources. Yeah, I'm in the resources area. No, I didn't want to go to resources. I want to go stages. My bad. So I'm going to expand our staging area and just click on our Geocode. Is it right here?
Why?
I think.
You sure you want to be in stages, not resources?
No, this is where I wanted to be.
Sure.
So I'm sorry. I just forgot which one of these nodes was where I was trying to get to this.
Sure.
So one of the things that you noticed before when I was showcasing it, let me see if it's still there. You see this little code that's highlighted at the bottom of the screen?
Yep.
You can also see that same code as part of this entire URL. So if someone's like, well, thanks for the code, but what if I didn't have the whole URL? Now you have the whole URL.
Yeah.
You know? So, but basically the custom API always is preceded by this little custom moniker type thing that's created. Yeah. So that's the first thing I want to show. But what we did before, so now going back to resources, because I think you were trying to follow my other logic and I threw you off.
Yep.
It's this whole actions thing, where we can see there's an enable CORS, because I'm not going to do this, but if I select this and then turn around and also deploy it, that was our fix for how we got our previous one. By the way, that one was our map image API, right? So now to address your other question, Nick, and that was, why did we not have to do it this time around? And the answer is kind of complicated, but not complicated. You're not going to get very specific details. You're going to get the broader picture answer. The broader picture answer is not all of our applications are essentially just duplicates of one another.
Sure.
For example, what kind of data, Nick, are we returning with Geocoder?
Latitude and longitude as well as address information.
Yeah, but what's the data type that's getting returned over the internet?
JSON?
Yeah, JSON, right.
Yeah.
But what for map image, what you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we were doing a base 64 encoded string, right?
Right. So because of the programming or coding that goes into each one of these applications to make sure they're optimized for what they do, there could be different means by which they're set up in order to do one of these. Whoops, I just banged my microphone. I can see Peter probably turning red in the background, but the whole application is uniquely created. So if you were going to say, so what makes the difference between one uses CORS versus the other? I couldn't say I have that definitive list, but I do know for Geocoder, all you have to do is uncomment that line.
Sure.
You don't have to do a redeploying of your own API. Sure. And in fact, I, for just fun, did try to enable CORS anyway, and I can tell you it failed. So
interesting.
So it's not a one-stop shop solution for each one. You would have to basically navigate. What's nice, and I think I'll go back over if this is our code. Yes, what's nice is if you happen to see in the code a commented line for headers, that was the developers, our developers, providing a courtesy check to say, hey, you might need this. This is the way to do it. You do it in code. You don't use the other, way of doing it, which is having to manage the API gateway.
Well, like Roberto Dev says in the chat, as a front-end developer, Cores is his worst enemy.
Yeah, and you know what? From a demo of our code perspective, Cores has been also a nightmare. So I feel his pain. He is correct.
So Rathorn in the chat says, "Can you do a quick Eli 5 on Cores?" I'm not sure I know what that means.
Eli 5.
ELI and then the number 5. Not sure I know what that is. Explain like I'm 5.
Oh, explain Cores like he's 5. See, apparently 5-year-olds know what Eli 5 is, but I am a little older than that, and I was confused. So, yes. So actually, I'm trying to remember what Core stands for. Cross origin
Resource sharing.
Resource sharing. It is a system that is baked into our browsers. It's baked in to essentially prevent being able to access resources that are not intended to be accessed from certain locations unless they're authorized. And of course, as we know from all of the mistakes that have been made in the past over the years, the default for most things now is to turn things off. So that is why this is a nightmare, is because we have to figure out how to allow, thus that access control allow origin star. What the saying is that whatever is calling, that's gonna be allowed, or we can make it very specific resources that are allowed and then denying everything else.
Sure.
And if you have a better 5-year-old version, like you might actually have a 5-year-old for all I know, Nick. How would you describe this to your?
I think you gave the 10-year-old version. I don't have a 5-year-old or a 5-year-old version. I think they'd just be out of luck.
If I had like little spelling blocks, I would say this block wants to talk to this block, but I don't have those props with me. But hopefully that's a little more understandable. So, okay, so I would think, and just because he put it out there, I think as like a final challenge, I would love to see Nick do a little conversion here. Yeah, you're all like, can we just fetch this? Like, bring it, dude.
Hey,
show us the fetch version.
Remember, Dylan Babs, who was on the previous Waypoints episode, he's been shaming me for months on the whole fetch thing. So now I started using it. Now, now I'm doing the shaming as well. I don't know if it comes with the fetch command or what.
I personally, I'm glad you guys are doing this, because up until recently, I've never used it because of my old habits.
Yeah.
So I love that you're already at a place where you're kind of doing this off the top. So let's watch and see what happens.
Yeah. So first of all, we want to copy that. We probably want to do the whole inline magic and get rid of the plus. We can say then, and this is JSON still, right? So we're going to say response.
Could you use my process form function that's at the top that includes the value?
We are using that. We're saying invoke. Yeah, this is inside the
it's
invoke.
already in there. I'm sorry. Yeah, don't listen to
And then response. And we're gonna say, what are we doing with the response? We're just returning it, right? Or are we doing anything with it?
I'm just putting in the console. Yeah.
You're just printing it.
Yep.
So let's just console log it out. And we'll comment this. And then maybe if we're lucky, it still works.
Okay. Save that. Go back over to our page. This would be this one here. Do a refresh of everything. And let's put Seattle, get the geolocation. And sure enough, Nick rocked it with everything that he did. If we go in the view, I think it's also nice to show, because we talked about this earlier, but I just want to showcase it again. Many times, Nick, when we're doing this, and like I said, when I hover over, sometimes developers would like to have a really quick way to know what the, what the chain looks like to get to this.
Yeah.
So we have the display down to the latitude and also to the longitude. And like you said, in many cases, that's all we need. But it's kind of interesting when we look at this information, even with just Seattle, we get this other information as well. So sometimes we can get so caught up in just the geolocation that we forget about all the other valuable pieces of data that are involved with that. We wouldn't have to make additional API calls to get sometimes this very important data. And I also like the label. So even if I just put Seattle, but I want to kind of give the fuller address, I could use the label under this data here as well.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I just wanted to call that out.
And now that you know fetch, you can now shame other people as well, right?
As soon as I become proficient at it, I will start doing that. So yes. Very good. So, and by the way, I want to say I really enjoyed having this experience of being able to share. This is a nice feature that Microsoft did, being able to create this collaborative experience in Visual Studio Code. So I think that this is my first Twitch episode where I've done this, and I think it was a blast. Is it possible for us to both type at the same time?
Yeah. It's kind of like a Google Doc where it's like,
all right,
you're just collaborating. So I mean,
okay,
you can add. Oh, I'm in the wrong window.
Oh, are you in Geocode?
No, I was looking at another screen that was.
Oh yeah! Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I love that feature. Great. Okay, well, I have nothing else to show. I guess I would just say the one thing that's kind of nice about this page, just so that it makes a crystal clear distinction, there is no use of our API ID or code in this HTML document. It is literally calling our custom API, and that's where everything is managed. And so if there were questions from anyone viewing, why would you introduce that middle layer? Just remember, sometimes you want to have centralized logic to access or provide something to multiple types of clients, maybe iOS clients, Android clients, web clients, and you want to have a central location to manage those things. For example, let's say you were using a competing location service in AWS, and now you realize, wow, I should have been using here all along. What you could do is swap out that underlying provider with us with minimal impact to all those clients, as long as you basically utilize the same contract of how information is being shared back and forth. Another advantage, of course, to using your own API gateway is you can enable caching there for certain things. There's a lot of security checks or custom things that you can put in place that if they're custom logic that applies across the board, that's where you could do it in that serverless function. So hopefully that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Well,
do you have anything else to add before we go through our outro logistics?
No, only if there's any questions on our Twitch chat that need to be addressed, be happy to address those now.
There actually was a request to get this code up on GitHub, so we'll definitely upload it to GitHub, our project, and you can view it in the live stream directory, which Nightbot previously pasted in, but we can get Nightbot to paste it in again, the GitHub link.
So I think that's really good, Nick, and it's probably a nice call out too, just to mention that you yourself and we have both uploaded JavaScript type examples into GitHub already that are kind of almost like in a step-by-step tutorial flow. Yeah. Mixer's really nice because it's using all the modern JavaScript, and for those old timers, you'll see the old standards way of doing it. So you would have access to both on GitHub, but also it'd be nice to have this code uploaded up there, and so we'll take care of that.
Yeah, definitely. As far as this episode goes, you'll be able to see it on demand on Twitch, but in about a week, it will be up on YouTube alongside all of our other AWS Connections videos, as well as our developer waypoints and Explore XYZ videos. So everything that we've done on Twitch can be found on YouTube as well. Cool. If you have questions after this episode, as soon as the chat goes away, you can chat with us further on Slack. So Nightbot will share Slack. There it is. Find us on Slack. We're all there. Just shoot us a message, ask some questions. We're happy to help. You can follow us on Twitter. The Here Developer Twitter account is @HereDev, but I believe Michael, yours is Palermo4, correct?
That's correct.
and mine is nraboy, so first initial, last name. You can catch the next episode of our stream. So this would be AWS Connections. Would be the next episode is on August 14th. Do you have any idea what we're doing on that episode, Michael?
Yes. So the next API that's going to have our focus, we're going to follow the same exact format, is how to use our Places API.
Perfect. So that's on August 14th, same place, same time. We also have a Developer Waypoints episode on August 7th. So that's next week, same place, same time. So 11 a.m. Pacific time on this Twitch stream. Do you have any shameless plugs you want to add to this episode, Michael?
None at this time. Just be in tune for that particular episode. And if anyone from Mexico just happens to be listening in, I'll see you at the AWS Summit in Mexico at the end of August.
Awesome. So don't forget, follow our channel so that way you get notifications every time we're about to go live. Take it easy, everyone.
Take care.